In this video, I'm talking about the biggest complaints that Rochesterians have about living in Rochester, New York. Let's get into it right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every Tuesday and Thursday that I release a new video. And with that being said, as much as I love making these videos for you on all things Rochester and Finger Lakes living, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number and that email that's popping up on the bottom of your screen, I am the guy that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, don't hesitate to reach out. It's never too soon to get the process started, especially when you're moving maybe across the country or just a couple states away. Never too soon to get started. So without further ado, in this video, I'm talking about some of the biggest complaints that Rochesterians have about living in the Rochester area. And I don't necessarily love doing the negative videos, but what I've found is that it helps a lot of you guys in making your decisions, because when you're moving to a new area, especially, you know, for a job or something like that, or if you're not moving for a job and it's just a personal choice, then you definitely want to know what the pros and the cons are. So if I'm only talking about the good things, then I mean, you're getting kind of a skewed, almost bias type opinion on the area. So I definitely want to tell you the cons of the areas and kind of get you a full grasp of what you're actually getting yourself into. See if you can deal with these things or not. So we have about 8 things listed out, and we'll roll into it right now. So getting right into it, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you've probably heard about the harsh winters that we have here in the Rochester and Finger Lakes region. The winter time is inarguably one of the worst times of year around here, and it lasts for, you know, 6 to 8 months basically. The winters, it's snowy, it's gloomy, it gets icy, it gets rainy sometimes, so you get a mix of basically everything, and including maybe some days that are like 60 degrees, which then will create the ice because it'll warm up, melt the snow, maybe it'll rain a little bit, and then it'll freeze again. So then everything becomes ice. And it's not uncommon to look out to your grass and just see basically an ice skating rink. So it definitely gets harsh here. And you know, if I were to like make a top 3 list of why people move out of New York State or the Rochester and Finger Lakes region specifically, one of the top 3 is going to be the weather. It's just not great. And that being said, you know, along with the harsh winters, we do have one of the least amount of sunny days per year in the United States. So it's not very sunny. You know, that is because of the wintertime. The wintertime drags on so long, and it is so gloomy, so gray outside, that just we don't get much sunlight. In the summer months, though, it isn't bad at all. We've had a lot of sun this year so far, in the spring and summer months that we've had so far. So we're in mid-June right now. So it hasn't been bad. But the wintertime itself is inarguably one of the worst things about this area. I don't personally think it's that bad because I like to keep myself active during the wintertime. But if there was, you know, a list of reasons why people move out of New York State, it's because of the harsh winters. So definitely keep that in mind if you're coming from somewhere like subtropical, like down south, or maybe California or something like that. You're going to have winter here, and it's going to be pretty harsh. So just expect that, be cognizant of it, dress accordingly, and find activities to do. Moving right along, number 2 on the list of things that people complain most about in the Rochester area is the limited job opportunities. It's not that there's not a lot of jobs, because there are, but I'm going to say limited, high paying and high growth job opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities for like high school, college kids, right, that are maybe minimum wage or slightly above, that you're not getting a ton of hours in, and it's not, you know, it's not paying very well. It's not setting you up for life. You don't get great benefits, etc., right? It's not a long-term job that you're going to grow into a career. Those kind of jobs aren't as plentiful in this area. We have certain industries like healthcare, education, tech, and some of the arts as well. But outside of those industries, so manufacturing is also a medium-sized industry here, but they're not paying all that well. If you're in healthcare, you're probably going to get paid pretty well. Education, I mean, New York State educators, they get paid decent. A lot of them not paid enough, but that is one of the more abundant fields around here. But a lot of the locals deem this area as, limited job opportunity. And so, chances are if you're moving here, you've probably already got a job lined up. So you probably don't have to worry about this. But if maybe your wife or your husband got a job here and now you're kind of on the hook to look for one, it may be kind of challenging for you. You may have to step outside of your field of expertise or your whatever your job field is. You may have to step outside of that and get into something different that you're maybe unfamiliar with, which then may bring a little bit less pay because you don't have as much experience in that field, right? So just be cognizant of that if you're moving to the area, or maybe you have kids growing up in the area, like, what kind of jobs are they going to get into? So pick and choose wisely, but just be cognizant that there is limited job opportunity, and that is one of the biggest reasons why people complain about living in the Rochester area. And number 3, and what I think is one of the most significant drawbacks, is the higher taxes. So here in New York State, all over New York State, not just the Rochester and Finger Lakes region, but all of New York State is going to have higher taxes. Your taxes are going to be significantly higher than many other states, especially down south. We're going to be comparatively to California on some of the highest taxes in the United States, if not the highest. So New York State, I mean, you get to keep like half your money basically, and New York State will take the rest of it. So just keep that in mind. If you're coming here and you're a high income earner and you're in those higher tax brackets, chances are you're not going to be making as much money as you were in other states, just because New York State taxes are so high, and it's just astronomical. That being said, to kind of counterbalance that is, we do have a significantly lower cost of living here in upstate New York, in the Rochester and Finger Lakes region. So while your property taxes and all your taxes are much higher, your cost of living is much lower. So, all in all, you're probably balancing out with the rest of the United States. But as far as your earned income goes, you're probably not making as much money as you would be somewhere down south, say Florida or Texas or the Carolinas or something like that, right? So just something to keep in mind. It is one of the biggest drawbacks of this area. And I think besides the weather, I think the taxes are what you always hear people complaining about. So just keep that in mind. Number 4 on the list is going to be limited entertainment options. And while I made a video just a couple videos ago about all the things that you can do with your family in the Rochester area, while I believe those are fun things to do with your family, there was a comment on the channel on that video actually that this is why Rochester is deemed like the old man city of the US or something like that, right? It was basically referring to how we're old and boring, and it's just, those aren't fun things to do, which, I mean, that's not true. Many people love to go do those things that I mentioned in that video. There's a lot to do here if you search for it, right? But that being said, there's not going to be as much as many other cities. I remember I was out in Denver a little bit ago, and there were things to do literally, like, on any given night you had, 50 different things to do. It was just, you had so much being offered in a larger city like that. And of course, it's a much larger city. There's a lot more going on. But there's also drawbacks to being in a much larger city. Rochester is a little bit more laid back. It's a little bit more, slower vibe. It's not as uppity as some of these other cities. It's not as ritzy as some of these other cities. Like, when you come to Rochester, your nightlife is going to be a little bit slower. It's going to be more chill, relaxing, right? So you can't, like, I don't know, while there's certainly a lot to do here, there's just not as much to do as many of the other cities. Even if you go to Buffalo or Syracuse, there may be quite a bit more there in those cities than there is in Rochester. Rochester is a medium-sized city. There's not a ton of people there. There's not a ton of different options, but there's enough to go have fun. And I mean, like, I don't know what people like to do, but I feel like there's a lot to do. And if you just escape the city area and you get out into the suburbs, there's definitely a lot to do. So, you know, while there's not like tons of concerts and things like that, there's tons of hockey games, basketball games, lacrosse, right? There's different sports. There are concerts like in Canandaigua at CMAC. You know, the whole summer is lined up with great musicians and artists and stuff. So there's a lot to do in the surrounding areas, but the city itself, you know, a lot of people just complain that there's not a ton going on any given day. The things that you see going on are like farmers markets. They're like, let's see, you got like the Strong National Museum of Play. You have different like shopping experiences, right? Maybe small mom and pop owned shops are like out on the street, out on the sidewalk, and you can go walk, kind of like a festival. But Rochester is Festival City, so it's like you've got quite a bit going on. There's a party in the park going on here in the near future where they have bands and, you know, different things going on. And then, you know, in Irondequoit, you have Seabreeze Amusement Park, which is, it's literally an amusement park. It's great. I think that there's a lot going on, but a lot of people do complain that there's not enough going on. So I don't know if that's a problem of abundance or greed or whatever it is, but that is one of the big complaints of Rochesterians in the area. Moving right along, number 5 is going to be poverty and crime. So just some statistics here that I pulled up recently. As of 2021, according to niche.com, Rochester is rated as a C- based on violent and property crime rates. So calculated annually per 100,000 residents, assaults, so a violent crime assault is 549.7, whereas the national average is 282.7. So assaults are significantly above the national average per 100,000 residents. Murder is 23.4, whereas the national average is 6.1. So murder is significantly above the national average. Rape is 41.9. National average is 40.7. So relatively close to the national average, still slightly above. Robbery is 203.7, whereas the national average is 135.5. Property crimes, burglary is 676.9, and national average is 500.1. Theft is 2,233.4, and the national average is 2,042.8. And motor vehicle theft is 445.9, and the national average is 284. So as you can see in basically all of those major categories, Rochester is significantly worse than the national average when it comes to crime. Now, what I will say is that there are pockets of areas where a majority of this crime happens. So if you go to, like, I think it's city or neighborhood reporting, something like data, something, there's different websites where you can go and see where the crimes are happening, what the crimes are, and how many of them are happening, right? And you're gonna find that all of them, most of them, are located in certain areas throughout the city, just like any other city. And so you can go do your research on where these things are happening. This is certainly not me steering you any sort of way, anything like that. I'm just saying, according to the data here, if you go on these websites, you can do the research yourself and you can find out where these things are happening. Rochester is a city where, you know, some of the property crimes are happening all over the place, just like they do in the suburbs as well. Like, they happen everywhere. But your violent crime and a majority of your property crimes are going to be happening in, you know, certain areas. But, you know, the safety, the crime aspect of things is, I think, in the top 3 of largest complaints in the Rochester area by locals, because You know, if you feel like you can't bring your family anywhere, then that's a problem, which is why a lot of residents choose to live right outside of the city. So it's still a short commute to, you know, to work or to wherever they want to go. They're still outside of these areas that maybe have higher crime. So just something to be cognizant of. Definitely do your research. I can point to some websites for you if you send me a message or something like that. They'll tell you exactly kind of like what you're looking at, where your crime is, kind of where you should where you should settle down and where you shouldn't settle down. So if that's something that you care about, crime is a C- according to niche.com. So just keep that in mind. Moving right along into number 6 is going to be limited transportation options. So in the city of Rochester, right in the city, you do have the bus system. The bus, I believe it's either a quarter or $1. Maybe I should have looked that up, but it's very cheap to ride the bus, and it'll take you, you know, anywhere that you need to go within the city limits. That being said, if you want to get outside of the city, you're going to have to take an Uber or a Lyft, or, you know, there are still some taxis and things like that, but definitely Uber and Lyft are going to be your main ways to get you outside of the city into some of the suburbs or the outlying areas. But your bus system will take you within the city limits, and I believe it's a quarter or $1, so it's very cheap. The issue with that, though, is that it makes multiple stops, just like any bus system does, right? So you'll have a certain route that your bus is going to be going through, and if you happen to be the last stop, then it's going to take you a lot longer to get there. So definitely keep that in mind. If you're relying on the bus system to get you to work or something, you're going to have to probably catch the earlier bus in order to get there on time, or just, you know, plan your routes, you know, properly, or, you know, whatever, or take a Lyft or Uber. And Lyft and Uber is not very expensive around here because cost of living is so much cheaper. The Lyft and Uber rates are significantly cheaper than other places, say like San Diego or LA or San Francisco or, you know, Denver, Colorado, or some of these other places that are significantly more expensive for things. That being said, there is a train system that will take you to like Albany or Syracuse, but, you know, it's just not great. Not many people utilize it, you know, as much as maybe we should. But then, you know, transportation to out of state, you have Frederick Douglass Airport, which obviously that's not local transportation, but it is right there. It's a 10-minute drive from the city, not even. So, you know, you do have a short drive to the airport, and then the airport can take you. There's many non-stop flights from Frederick Douglass. But then if you need a layover, you can get a layover in like Newark, New Jersey, or JFK in New York City, and fly out of there and fly direct from there. So the other thing is you can drive to Toronto, which is a short drive, and get much cheaper flights from Toronto to many other places that you're trying to go. Kind of seems like a hassle, but when it's significantly cheaper, it might make all the difference. Or you shoot up right up the I-90 onto the thruway and go over to Syracuse or Buffalo, and you can get direct flights from there as well. But Frederick Douglass definitely has a bunch of options if you're traveling outside of the state and you want to fly. They've got great options, cheaper flights. They have some direct flights and then some layovers as well. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, so number 7 on the list is going to be lack of diversity in Rochester. And, you know, I was reading this, and I had to do a little bit of research just because I didn't necessarily agree with this complaint. And so I don't know what Rochesterians are really thinking about when they're talking about lack of diversity, but there are 228 major cities in America according to niche.com, and Rochester is number 43 of the most diverse. So it's pretty diverse here. You know, it's rated 2023 one of the best places to live. So, you know, when we're talking about diversity, Rochester is very diverse. And not only that, but I think that Rochester is one of the highest, or one of the best cities for opportunities in diversity and inclusion, right? So like when you're comparing, you know, minority groups to other cities, you see minority groups outperforming and doing a lot better in Rochester than you do in other major cities, particularly like San Francisco or LA or San Diego, or some of these other cities that are a lot more expensive, don't necessarily treat their people as well as maybe Rochester does, doesn't have the same opportunity, other things. So I think there's an aspect of Rochester being a medium-sized city that it's still affordable to live here. It's still, just inclusive with basically everything that we've had here. So when you talk about diversity, it's a very diverse city, and it's very accepting of that kind of stuff. So not quite sure where the complaints are coming from when they say lack of diversity, but I mean, the statistics show as of 2023, it's number 43 on the most diverse cities in America out of 228. So that's pretty significant. That's a pretty good rating there. And so for diversity, I believe it was a plus. Yeah, A plus on niche.com as far as diversity goes. So kind of debunking that complaint there, but just throwing out there that maybe there's an anecdotal feel to the city where maybe locals here don't feel like it's that diverse. Maybe they've lived in other cities and they're, just trying to compare it. I don't really know. It might be more anecdotal than anything, than data driven, but according to the data, it is a very diverse city. All right, and last but not least, a common complaint of many Rochesterians is going to be limited shopping opportunities, or options rather, and particularly in the luxury shopping market. So things like your Rolexes or maybe your luxury cars. So I do know that many people around here like their cars, and I have acquaintances who are very high end, who they've become wealthy through owning their own businesses, and they happen to enjoy and love their vehicles. And it is champagne problems, right? But they're looking at issues finding vehicles like, say, Lamborghinis or Ferraris, right? Where maybe they're looking for something like that, maybe a unique car or a unique sports car or something. And we just simply don't have the dealers here. And there is a reason for that. It's because of the weather. When you have the weather that we do, when you have so much salt on the roads, it can tear up the bottom of those cars. It can, create rust that you're not going to want on these vehicles. And so, what you find is that a lot of the people who do own these vehicles, you see them around town, and there's so few of them that you notice them. They keep them in the garage for the winter months, until there's like super warm weather or nice weather. They're not bringing them out onto the road. So it's more like a seasonal vehicle for them. Whereas somewhere down like Fort Lauderdale or Miami or Tampa or, places in Texas or something, they've got their cars year round. They're driving them year round, like all is good. Here, your vehicles, your sports vehicles, your luxury high-end vehicles, they're going to be more of a seasonal type vehicle. The other thing is like Rolexes, watches, right? So we have a few retailers here that sell some of them, but they're not your super high-end Rolexes. They're not your super high-end watches. I'm not even kind of a luxury brand kind of guy, but you don't have a ton of them out here. As far as like grocery shopping goes, you have your Walmarts, you have Costco, you have a Whole Foods, and you have Trader Joe's. But then Wegmans is going to be your big one. So Wegmans is the major grocery shopping mart around here. There's also Tops Friendly Markets, and so which is a little bit lower scale. It's in between like a Walmart and a Wegmans, right? So we do have all those. But I don't know, what kind of grocery stores there is out in wherever you guys are coming from. But Wegmans is going to be like your top grocery store. It also happens to be one of the favorite places of a lot of the locals around here because of, you got dining options there. You have a cafe. You can go beer taste, wine taste over there. So there's a lot going on at Wegmans. But you know, the Rochester just lacks, I guess it lacks the variety of shopping options, and more specifically with your high-end retailers, your luxury brand retailers. We just simply don't have them here. We do have a couple shopping malls though. We've got one really nice one in Victor, which is Eastview Mall. Eastview is nice. You have the Grease Ridge Mall, and then you have the Marketplace Mall in Henrietta. So there's a few malls, there's a few shopping centers, but there's not, like I said, there's not the real high-end luxury brand retailers. So keep that in mind. If you are one of those people that like those high-end luxury brands, you're probably going to have to go down to New York City, or you're going to have to go to, I don't know, just another state, maybe DC or Virginia or something like that. Places where they have them in abundance, because we do not up in this part, in this neck of the woods. So with that being said, guys, hope you guys got something from this. This was the 8 biggest complaints of Rochesterians about living in the Rochester, New York area. So with that being said, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every Tuesday and Thursday that I release a new video. And as much as I love making these videos, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So be sure to reach out to that information that's at the bottom of your screen. I am the guy that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, I would love to be the team of choice to help you relocate here in the near future. And without further ado, guys, I hope you have a great week. See ya.